Is this thing on? Hey, what's up, chat? Of course, I'm not really talking to anyone in particular. I'm mostly just talking to the VOD. Hope you're all having a great day. You know, take time to drink some water and take care of things you need. I want to take time to talk about some things because I've been really kind of feeling frozen with my life lately. Obviously, we're always changing, learning and growing as people. So it's like, I don't really want to compare myself to others. I don't want to, but that's what's happening. I feel like I'm getting stuck because of analysis by paralysis. That there's this situation, obviously, that most people can relate to. I haven't been showing up to my stream lately. I haven't been showing up to anything, really. I'm almost through with my acting class, and as time went on, it became harder. And I'm still making it through, barely. I'm struggling with, socializing with people. I'm struggling with developing just natural relationships with people. But apparently I'm doing fine externally. Like, apparently I'm doing fine. According to the people that are socializing with me, according to my therapist. There's this disconnect inside of me. I guess it's imposter syndrome. That I feel like there's never going to be a time where I don't feel this way. And I'm learning how to come to terms with that. That I think no matter how obviously right now it's really easy for me to justify these feelings because I'm not earning a full-time income, because I'm not popular on social media, because I'm not really developing my modeling career or anything like that. It's really easy for me to justify my imposter syndrome, which is really dangerous because I know that I'm doing really well, according to everyone but myself. Obviously, people in the YouTube comments, they know who they are. They're gonna fight back against me because they fear this feeling inside of themselves. And I invite them to try to start thinking more internally rather than externally. I mean, hey, like, you're here for a reason, even if it's to post negative things about me. You're clearly here for a reason. And I invite you to start working on that. I think you can be good people. I think you could potentially be my fans. I care about you. I want to see you do better than life. I want to see you do better in life than going on comment sections in YouTube and post. I mean, it's one thing to just post in comment sections. I mean, hey, that's what I do. But to go into people's comment sections, especially someone you claim to hate, that is something of a disorder, and I hope that you deal with that. Because I did nothing to you. I just exist. And you have a problem with me for whatever reason. That is something that I hope that you deal with. But those people aside, I have not forgotten about. But those people aside, because I can't really help them, most of us go through life and it seems like other people can see us better than we can see ourselves. And I've had this experience where it's like, I feel like I'm totally gaslit. How can I possibly be doing well? I'm not making a full-time income. My career is basically gone nowhere. To the point where I feel like I can't even do anything. I haven't been doing anything because of it. It's almost becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Where because of all this external data, watching YouTubers talk about stuff, watching people like Devin Nash talk about stuff, it makes you, and you see all these people and you compare yourselves to them, like you see like YouTubers with millions of followers and you're like, how could I possibly get into this? They're barely making it. And they have all this money they can pour into it. They have like social media managers. They're established as content creators. How can I possibly do what they're doing? But then we could always come back to don't compare ourselves to others. Don't compare yourself to others. Don't compare yourself to other people. It always comes back to that. And we know this. But for some reason, like, knowing it is not half the battle. And it barely even gets us a step out of the gate. Like when we start thinking about things that way. We're like, oh, of course I'm not supposed to compare myself to others. And then it's like, but, ... Here are reasons. Well, I just spilt all my coffee. Good thing I didn't pour anything into it yet. Jesus Christ. This is what I get for trying to save time. So, it's like, I keep forgetting why I started streaming in the first place. Like, yeah, a part of me was thinking, here's a way that this really dysfunctional person, who at the time, I didn't even know I was autistic when I started streaming on Twitch. But I knew something was wrong. And I knew I couldn't really function. And I started watching Twitch. And, as a chess player, Twitch was really synonymous with the chess community. And it still is, actually. Streaming has become, and YouTube has become an inseparable part of chess. And chess is only one part of my life. And that's one of the things I had to discover, that I am not just a chess player. I am not just a musician. I am not just a public speaker. I am not just a sex icon. What? Yeah, apparently I have lots of skills, not just one. I mean, like, who would have thought that? Who would have thought that it's possible to be more than just one thing? But when I started on Twitch, like most people who start streaming, I had a lot of misconceptions and I had a lot of wishful thinking and delusional thinking, which to an extent is how you succeed. To an extent. In order to succeed, you have to imagine a better life than what you have now. In order to succeed, you have to do the impossible, or what you think is impossible, or what other people think is impossible. That's how we get innovation in technology and science. You know, that's how we get innovations. And I do believe it is not always just autistic people, but people with autistic traits, which includes a lot of neurotypical people. But especially autistic people, I was doing some research. There's been some light shed on the evolutionary purpose of autistic traits, which definitely, of course, includes autistic people. That there seems to be an evolutionary reason why we have autistic traits. There was a study done using basically like a video game that was probably a lot like Minecraft, or probably was Minecraft, of comparing people with more or less autistic traits, which includes neurotypical people, and they found that people with more autistic traits spent more time doing things that didn't have a clear reward. Things like going out and trying to discover things, searching for new things, going out and exploring the map, all those kind of things. And so I'm actually convinced, and I don't know what the conclusive data, I didn't read the full academic report or whatever, but I am convinced that autistic people exist as an evolutionary purpose to push boundaries and explore the unexplored. Because neurotypical people are evolutionary designed to maintain the status quo. And if all we had were neurotypical people, or people with less autistic traits, we might go extinct because we wouldn't have invented tools. We wouldn't have invented agriculture. We wouldn't have explored different parts of the world. We would have stayed in one spot, and then as soon as there's a disaster or some kind of scarcity or a famine or something like that, we would have died out. We wouldn't have been able to survive and perpetuate the human species. But people with autistic traits are the explorers, are the inventors, the engineers. And, it's not just autistic people, but definitely, it does shed some light on why these traits exist and why we've evolved to have these traits. Like, why would you think that autistic people would have any place when, especially in today's world, we're so disabled, depending on where you are on the spectrum? Someone like me who can barely show up to a commitment, especially a job. How is this person evolutionary? What is the purpose of this? And when I read that study, it gave me a little bit of hope. I have a purpose. I have an evolutionary purpose for being on this planet. I'm supposed to not be normal. Like, I'm supposed to be a weirdo. Because it's the weirdos that push for change. It's the weirdos that keep the species alive. That try new things, that explore ideas that most people scoff at. And I found that my whole entire life. I'm different. People are afraid of change, actually. And they, I was punished for it. But just because I was punished doesn't mean I'm wrong. Just because people are ignorant and mistreat what they don't understand doesn't mean I don't have a purpose on this earth. So when I started on Twitch in 2019, I had a whole bunch of delusions, a whole bunch of misconceptions, a whole bunch of wishful thinking. That if I go live, people are going to show up and I'm going to be able to make money. Finally. Something that I can physically do. Something as simple as going live and just talking or just playing games or that was what was on my mind. And obviously, as time goes on, as time went on, that quickly became, that reality was pretty shattered. I am not super popular. And obviously, it's not easy. However, I did discover something about myself, that I have a set of skills that are potentially useful. And I learned that because of Twitch. That there are people who make millions of dollars using that set of skills. Now, it doesn't mean I'm guaranteed to make that happen. But what it told me was that I have useful skills. That it may not be proven to be useful in the context of my life at this time. But what it did was it showed me that there's always something that I could do. That even if I had nothing else, I can click start, go live. I can click start streaming. And I used it as a way to cope with a lot of stuff while I was going through my medical stuff. To have a place to just let things go. To just talk about stuff. And then as time went on, especially, I've been dealing with medical recovery and just, touching grass. Important stuff, not frivolous things. I've been doing important stuff, so don't get me wrong here. But what I found as time went on was that I felt more discouraged to go live. I would say things like, what's the point? I'm never going to make it. Nobody's watching. What chance do I have to compete against the likes of like OTK or like XQC or Pokimane or Amaranth, the #1 earner on OnlyFans? With multiple sponsors such as Jerkmate and all sorts of stuff like that. What can I hope to achieve? That those things start creeping in. And it's this comparison. And it feels so it feels so logical. And if you just use logic, the answer is always going to be not to try. No matter how good you are at something, there's always someone better. And so if all you use is logic, like you're inevitably going to reach that conclusion that you should just not even try. And so I've had to really fight against that. Because even if nobody is watching, I'm making a video that will be on my YouTube. Even if it's not very good, even if only one person watches it, I've still made it. And if I make one video, that means I can make another video. And I haven't done this in quite a while, where I just start the stream and just start talking. I don't know why. This is my number one skill, is chatting. Why am I not focusing on that? Why am I focusing on video games? You know, even though gameplay streams are, you know, a good way to distract myself. I've been spending more time gaming off stream, and it's taught me a few things. It's helped me to rekindle that relationship with video games that I think that I lost for a while. Where for the longest time I associated gaming with streaming. And when you do that, it becomes like more of a job. Which is weird because it's like it's not really a job. I'm not making any money off of it. I may be developing like some sort of like, you know, online presence because of it. But like when it becomes like, I love streaming and I love gaming while streaming. But that's not the only way to game. And whenever you do one thing, you have an opportunity cost. And we're not talking financially here. We're talking, if you game on stream, you're completely forfeiting the ability to game off stream during that time. And obviously, if you game off stream, you're forfeiting the ability to game on stream. So it's obviously, you know, it's an equal trade. Neither is better than the other. Maybe in certain situations, one is better than the other, but that's a constant ebb and flow. And I don't really think that gaming is my content. I think I need to really maximize on doing podcast style content. 'Cause I don't know if you know this, but I talk a lot. Okay? Even when nobody's reading or watching or listening. I type a lot. For things that don't matter, but they do. That's the thing, is like, no matter how insignificant something might seem, it's still infinitely more significant than doing nothing. That if I chose to do nothing at all with my life, if I just lay in bed and just wait to die, that's not a life. As bad as things might seem, as impossible as things might seem, as going live on Twitch and YouTube to make videos about things that most people are never going to watch, as insignificant and meaningless as that seems, it's so much more meaningful than doing absolutely nothing. And I feel a lot of my depression lately is because I haven't been streaming. Because I keep feeling like there's no point. And ironically, it, like, even though there is no point, that becomes the point. That streaming helps me focus my mind. Gives me a place to explore ideas. And it helped get me to where I am today. You know, as bad as I think things are, they could have been a lot worse. Like, hey, I have a vagina now. That was not in the realm of possibility in 2019. But I started streaming, and eventually I started thinking about what mattered. Because turning on my stream and doing chess streams or gaming streams, that wasn't important. That's what I was doing, but it reminded me of how frivolous that is. That obviously there's nothing wrong with doing that. But there is something wrong when I'm doing that at my own expense. At the expense of refusing to go to therapy, of refusing to deal with undealt with feelings and emotions around gender, when not doing surgeries, like treatments or surgeries, when I knew I needed them. It helped me get to the bottom of it. And I feel like that's what streaming can do. And I just love the idea of it. I love the idea of clicking a button, going live, and being able to share whatever I wish to share anytime I want. And the potential to even build a career off of that when I've seen people succeed. So it's possible. I don't know how it's possible for me. But that's where the comparison needs to stop. Is it works both ways, both positive and negative. It can be inspiring when you see people have successful YouTube or streaming careers. But it could also be limiting, because when you ultimately fail, because you're never going to recreate what somebody else created. Whatever I do has to be something that I am capable of. It has to be something that will work for me. That will work for my tribe, for my viewers, whoever they may be. Whatever I build has to be a custom build. And that's why it's so hard to build. Because you're not starting at the same place as somebody like XQC or Pokimane. Like they started their own way and it worked for them and they built their audience. I don't have that audience. So obviously I start off from basically zero. And that's why when you go live, there's nobody there. But that's not, it's kind of ominous. It's kind of depressing, but it's also liberating. Because it means that audience of 0 can potentially become 1. And that audience of 1 can potentially become 2. And then 3, then 4, then 5. And then I know that I'm doing something right, because it wouldn't build unless I was doing something right. Like, hello, hi there. Hate me if you like. I don't hate you, but I'll hate you if I like. That's the idea, is like, I feel like when we start thinking about view count, or if you start comparing yourself to others with higher viewer counts, you're not really seeing the reality of what's going on, which is where the failure is. Is like, yes, view count does correlate to how entertaining you are, or how educational you are, or whatever. However, it's almost liberating to know, yeah, I'm a woman who's transgender. I've finished through all my surgeries. I have to come to terms with the fact that a lot of the reason why I've had a lot of issues that are definitely exacerbated by autism, but a lot of the reason why I've had executive issues is because I've literally had 5 years of dedicated effort towards medical realities that needed to happen. So for the past 2 years, I've had 2 major surgeries. March of 2023, I had facial surgery that I'm only really just now recovering from after a year. And 8 months ago, well, actually, no, it's been a year and 8 months. I'm still like kind of recovering, like from facial surgery. Like there's some like blood flow issues or whatever. Not blood flow issues, but like there's still like nerves take a long time to grow back. like the nerve endings, because they cut into my skull, like my scalp. The doctor did. So, it's been but then 8 months ago I had my bottom surgery. That's a major surgery, and I'm still recovering from it. And for some reason in my mind, I'm like, why am I not doing 10 things at once? Why am I not doing 20 million things? Why am I not perfect? Why am I not achieving my career goals? Why am I not? It's like, dude, I literally just had something that I considered to be impossible happen. And not only that, but it was basically back to back. Like surgery after surgery, basically. And yet I still feel like I should be doing more. I like to think about this, that like obviously it's always so easy to compare ourselves to others and say, oh, well, because I have a low view count, that means that I am not good at what I do, or that I need, well, obviously you do need to do better because, the algorithm works for a reason. However, it's not because of the reasons we might think. It's because we're building something from scratch. And honestly, if you build something from scratch, it's going to start out from zero. That doesn't mean it's going to stay at zero. But what it means is that it's not about the view count. It's not about how many people are watching you or chatting with you. It's about the fact that I am building something that has never been built before. And when you do something that has never been done before, there's going to be a lot of setbacks, and there's going to be a lot of slow building. You might even go backwards. And so I think like reframing that kind of helped me understand like what I'm trying to build. Like I have to know what I'm trying to build in the first place. I don't really know what I'm building. I really don't know. I use other content creators as like an example of like, hey, like I think I'm kind of like this. Like I think I could do like a podcast. I don't really know how to make that happen. But, I have to actually try to do it. I have to actually practice it. I have to actually like come up with ideas. I have to actually plan things. Like you can't start out as a marathon runner when you haven't even when you can't even walk like a quarter mile, right? Like if you can't walk a quarter mile, how could you run a marathon? So, it's like you have to start from somewhere. And I feel like that's what I've been doing. I could have just been sleeping in bed. I could have just been like, playing video games and just feeling depressed, which is basically what I've been doing. But without any kind of hope whatsoever, without anything that I'm building, without trying. I could be trying better. Sure. But at least I'm trying. I don't see any reason why I can't succeed. I don't see any reason why I couldn't be a successful model. There's things I need to be doing better to make that happen. But I don't necessarily know what those things are. So why would I be expected to be doing them if I don't know what they are? Why am I being that harsh to myself? What's up, Blue ASMR? We're just talking about like things. I mean, that's very, very specific. Trying to like get back to my roots as a streamer. I used to love just waking up, starting my computer, and then just turn on the camera, turn on the microphone, and just start the stream. Because I love streaming. I love the idea of being able to just create something from nothing. Ozempic? No, I am not needing to be on Ozempic. Okay, like... Yeah, like I'm a little bit out of shape, but let's be real. I am diabetic, but I'm type 1 diabetic. It's a bit different. I just have to take insulin. I take glargine, which is a long-acting insulin. I also take Lispro as a supplement sometimes when I get a little bit too high blood sugar. But if you have like a pretty regular, healthy diet, you generally, and you exercise, and you drink plenty of water and all that kind of stuff, you get plenty of sleep, you generally have good blood sugar levels. It was a joke? Ha 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 ha. Yeah, here's the thing is I'm autistic. You have to understand that. I see things. It's not that I take everything literally. It's that I know that I take things literally. And so I try to see things from all angles, which can be somewhat of a problem, somewhat of a good thing. I understand things can be a joke, but then I also look at the real side of it. It's really interesting. I really don't know how to analyze exactly how my autism affects me. Because it doesn't seem to affect me in the way that, not in all the ways. I have a lot of shared experience with other autistic people, especially autistic women. I mean, who'd have thought that? An autistic woman can relate to an autistic woman. But I also relate to autistic men. I have a really unique kind of cocktail of a life. Because it's like, I mean, everybody has a unique life. Nobody has the same life that you have. Nobody had the same upbringing, the same same experience going through school, the same exact experience dealing with employment or dealing with parents, or nobody has had your life but you. And so when I think about that, being different, whatever that might be, is really not that different. I am autistic and I am transgender. Okay, those are two things that are different. They're considered to be different. But the more I live my life, and after I've gotten through all my surgeries, and now I'm starting to really look at what life really is, the more I realize how boring it is that I'm trans. In a good way. Like how uneventful that really is in the grand scheme of things. How insignificant it is towards my validity as a person and my validity as a woman. That when you really think about it, like, I have the only thing that really makes me different is that I was assigned male at birth, and I had to go through a spiritual awakening, and I had to go through medical treatments. Those are three things that are shared by a lot of different people. Knowing that you're different, having a spiritual awakening, and going through some kind of process to get there. Like, those are things that anybody can relate to. Being trans is not inherently different. And it might be difficult for a lot of people to swallow because, hey, I get it. It only affects 1% of us. And out of the 1% of us, the vast majority of us never achieve our goals. They never get their surgery. They never get anything, really. And then there's still social stigma, harassment, just general negativity towards our existence. And that's terrifying. But I want to invite people to really think about this. And not just for me, but for themselves. That if you really think about it, none of us are really that special, but that's actually not a bad thing. It means that we are free to live our beautiful journey. And it doesn't make us any different than anyone else. In fact, it brings us closer together. And we can share our differences and like celebrate our differences because we know that it's not that being different is not that different. It's just a different iteration of the same core principles of humanness. Yeah, cancer patients have that. There's something that makes you different. There's a spiritual awakening, and there's some kind of process or medical process specifically. People who go through a divorce, people who get married, people who have kids, people who lose a child, people who go to the military, people who get discharged from the military, people who get people who leave a religion, people who join a religion. There's all sort, getting a new career path, getting a new job, losing your job. These are all things that people share. And yeah, like you could argue that, okay, well, being trans is very different because it involves like gender, but I feel like that's only because people are still glued to this idea of gender being inherently related to your sexual, like, to your sex, to your chromosomes, which is not even that simple. Some women are born, cisgender women are born with XY chromosomes. And for and the ignorance of people is so bad that all it takes is somebody having XY chromosomes and now their gender is in question. I feel like it's more of a social problem rather than a inherent problem. My favorite Christmas song, Let It Snow, Let It Snow, Let It Snow. I guess. But maybe it's hard for a lot of people to understand what I'm saying, and that's okay. But I have insight that most people will never have. And I feel like people can at the very least respect that, even if they don't truly believe me or if they don't truly agree with me. And that's okay. But I do feel like I have an experience that gives me a unique perspective on life. Oh, you don't like Let It Snow? Well, what's your favorite Christmas song then, Bo? Wonderful. Everybody's having a wonderful Christmas time. Oh my God, that one is so weird. You're weird. I'm banning you now. No, I'm just kidding. No, not everybody is going to completely, like, some people, they're going to hear what I have to say and they're going to say, you're crazy. You're delusional. You're dumb. And it's like, it's easy to say that. It's easy to hear something that you don't agree with and accuse them of being mentally ill or delusional or some sort. It's easy to say that. It's easy to look at something that you don't understand and dismiss it as something that is inherently problematic or inherently wrong. When if you look at it objectively, it really isn't that different than anything else you've ever experienced. If you truly gave people like me, trans people, autistic people, whatever, if you truly gave people like me the benefit of the doubt, I don't think people would be as harsh as they end up being. Because you're adding all these layers of emotions to something that doesn't inherently exist. Literally, I am just a human with a human experience, and I exist just like you. And just because you don't particularly understand it doesn't make it wrong. And the longer I've gone post-op, the more I've realized that there are things that are unresolved that I can now, thankfully, actually see. Because now I don't have that gender dysphoria in the way, but also it's kind of frightening. Because now it's like, now I don't have an excuse. Minors don't get trans surgery. Please do your research before you comment on people's things. I don't need to tell you anything about it. There's plenty of research about it. You don't need to learn that from me. The fact that you're asking me is good, but you shouldn't be asking me. You should be asking doctors, scientists. They've already discovered these things. They've already researched these things. It's already been used in practice. It has had overwhelmingly... transgender medicine has its own established rules and regulations, and they're well documented. And they have been well documented for decades. And it's improved significantly over the past 2 decades. All the things that people who complain about it want. They want people to research it and get better at it. And so when people have a problem with it, what that tells me is that this person just wants to find a reason for us not to exist. And that might not be the case, but that's what it tells me. Whenever I see somebody who is being critical over transgender medicine, yeah, I mean, get used to it. A live streamer on YouTube talking, being a yapaholic. Imagine that. Imagine going into a YouTube stream or a Twitch stream and complaining that the person on the camera with a microphone is talking. Imagine that. That's so weird. Yeah, I should just turn the camera off. I should just turn the microphone off. Seriously. No, I mean, what it tells me is that somebody wants to find a reason for the thing that they don't like, which they are... I understand why. With transgender medicine, people are scared of it because they don't understand it. And they don't understand the reality behind it. That there are regulations and a process for trans medicine, especially for trans youth, for a reason. It's to avoid the very things that you're afraid of. And those things have been determined to have a pretty damn effective treatment, which involves just basically just accepting the person for who they are and not trying to steer them away from it. You know, in fact, like, here's the whole brainwashing narrative or the grooming narrative. How is affirming somebody's gender or affirming somebody's sexuality as being gay or straight, how is that any different than trying to affirm them for being straight or cisgender? If you really look at it like from a cold, logical, like AI, you know, kind of like no emotions kind of thing, they're exactly the same. Telling somebody that they're cisgender is the same as telling someone that they're transgender. And I think here's the idea, is that it's not necessarily about trying to tell somebody to be something. It's about just accepting somebody for who they are. You can't support my recent controversy? What is my recent controversy? I feel like you're a bot, Billiam. What recent controversy? What are you talking about? Am I trending on Twitter? What's going on? Did I have drama with OnlyFans? What's going on? Did I say something at the Streamer Awards? What's my recent controversy? This is news to me. I'm not aware of any recent controversies. My illegal strategies? What the fuck are you talking about? Of course it's gonna resurface, but that's like from 4 fucking years ago. But here's the thing I've noticed about that video. The only people who care about it are absolute, like, degenerate losers. Anybody who sees a video on the internet of somebody going through a mental crisis and thinks negatively of that person that they don't even know and haven't even, like, given me a chance to, like, talk about it, Magnus Carlsen tweeted about me? Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm sure like whatever allegations I have against me in the chess community, they're not true. And if they are true, I have a reason for it. And there may have been a butt plug vibrator involved, but it wasn't to cheat at chess. I can explain. Hear me out. Yeah, it's gonna look bad, but you know what? People move the fuck on from it. Anybody who gets stuck on that is an absolute failure of a human. People, if we took a camera at anybody's worst moment, everyone's gonna have a problem with it. But here's the thing, is we move the fuck on. I'm autistic and I was going through a very delicate time, and you have no idea what problems my dad has. I pretty much have completely given up on him. I was the last person in the family to actually want to help him, and he doesn't want help, and he will never receive help. He will pretend that he's getting better to stop people from talking to him about it. But he is a manipulative liar, and he does not want to change his behavior. He will never change his behavior, and he basically just shit on the entire family and everybody who cares about him. And I was the last person to truly care about him, and he's lost me now. So my life is already better after I decided that I am not my dad's friend anymore. Okay. Yeah, and obviously, there's people out there that have videos of themselves saying actual racist rhetoric or advocating. I don't even want to. I don't want to get one guyed by this. Come on, grow the fuck up. There's some myriad examples of people having controversial statements or videos online and then still having like a booming career. Okay, so I don't want to hear anything about that. And here's the thing that really helps me get through this is that I have never had anybody who isn't an terminally online loser give me shit about it. So disagree doesn't equal ban. It was because he was advocating for violence, for elder abuse. So if you want to criticize me on that, then we're gonna have a problem. That person was talking about kicking his dad's ass. I'm like, what? Like, dude, calm the fuck down. Are you okay? Jeez. No, basically, I mean, this is kind of fun, it helps me whenever I talk to people online. It reminds me that I have my head in a good space, that I have my priorities straight, that I have that I have a good head on my shoulders, that I know what's important and what's not, and it's like contrast. Like when I see people making comments online about me, and I'm like, at least I'm not that person. No, here's the thing, is it doesn't matter if it's physical or verbal or digital footprint. Like, everybody has a digital footprint. Do you understand? It's not going to be the death of anybody's career if it's not that bad. Me yelling at my dad in a clearly contextual context is not going to end my career. There are people literally advocating, that the Holocaust didn't exist. Okay, like there are people who are advocating for things that I don't even want to talk about because it makes me uncomfortable. Things involving children. And like there's people who are literally like advocating for that, and they have like millions of followers. Okay, so it's like I don't give a fuck what some random people on the internet think about me. Yeah, I mean, what do you think I'm doing, Solomon? Here's what I don't understand is when somebody comes to me with their own worldview and they project themselves as if they were living my life. That if they were me, they would do things a different way. But you're not me. You are you. I am me. You think that being on the internet is detrimental when for me, I've been on the internet since I was like 12 years old. This is like my native environment. Okay, like I'm trying to use something like life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Okay? You can't escape the internet. Even if you don't have social media accounts, somebody is going to take a video of you and put it up on the internet, or somebody is going to take something you say and put it up on the internet. Even if you tried to completely erase yourself from the internet and have no digital footprint, it is just simply not possible in today's world. So you may as well rip off the Band-Aid and accept that the internet is just a part of life, and it's how you use it that matters. And I have been in a process of trying to find a way of using the internet that will benefit me. That will, it might not be financially, might not be for like career development. Even if it's just, I want a space to explore ideas so that I can get stuff off my chest and then focus on what matters. That is actually the number one reason why I started streaming in the first place. 5 years ago, was I had to get a whole bunch of negative shit out. And yeah, if you want to make an omelet, if you want to make an omelet, you're going to have to crack some eggs. I mean, if you want to make an omelet, you're going to have to break some eggs, okay? Like, unfortunately, when you put yourself out there, you're going to also put some negative parts of yourself out there that you didn't intend to put out there. But here's the thing. That doesn't mean I should never try. It doesn't mean I should just like sit here and say, oh, well, I shouldn't put myself out there because something negative is going to happen on stream and people are going to cry about it. Like, dude, people have survived like actual like sexual misconduct allegations, being actually racist, being accused of being racist, committing crimes. Like, people have survived so many things throughout history and still had social status. So that isn't the thing that is going to ruin me. I need to accept that, because if I blame that, I am missing out. It's an easy target that is detrimental to me, because if I blame that, I am missing out on opportunities to correct things that might actually be detrimental to my career. Because if I focus on, oh, I only don't have a career because of something that leaked online, that's an excuse. It might be a valid excuse, but it's an excuse. Because all sorts of shit can happen in someone's past. So if it's like I owe myself to be honest with myself. That is it truly because of a video that surfaced online? It's most likely like a small part of it, but if anything, it gave me more exposure. It might not have been positive exposure. I've been with 2 men and 2 women, but technically I'm a virgin again, Ryan. I haven't had sex with anybody since I've had a vaginoplasty. So technically I'm a virgin again. I'm innocent. Bans everyone. I'm not banning them, I'm timing them out. If you think that banning people is why you don't have a career, you are so delusional. Every content creator bans people. You cannot have certain type of people in your chat. I don't know why I deleted that. You cannot have certain type of people that are going to disrupt your chat and disrupt you and cause nothing but disruption. IN before ban. What does IN-B4 stand for? I've heard it so many times and I just never remember what it is. Like, what are these things? What does this mean? I do not know. No, that's a losing mindset, Lights Eternal. You like, what if somebody came in starting saying like extremely racist or anti-Semitic things? You have to ban them. I'm not going to foster that kind of discussion in my chat. Okay, so you have to ban certain people that don't. You're always going to be banning like 10% of your viewers. Doesn't matter if you have 10 viewers or a million viewers. There's always going to be 10% of people that you just have to remove. It's always going to be the case. Yeah, a view is a view, but if it disrupts the content, I'm going to give you a timeout. This is what I'm talking about. If you're disrupting the content, if you're disrupting me, I'm gonna check you. Okay? That's the thing. Oh, you can't ban people because you only have 5 viewers. Yeah, I can. I can ban all 5 of you, bitches. Jesus Christ. If you're being little bitches, I'm gonna ban you. That's all there is to it. You're breaking the rules. There's a social contract. Be normal. Like, I mean, I don't care if you disagree with me, but if you're gonna cause disruption... IN before... What does IN before mean? What the fuck? I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. Shout out Misty. Shout out Ash Ketchum. So yeah, you know, it's like these are things that obviously viewers aren't going to get it. And this is an example of it. But this is kind of what I was talking about. Was that there are things that you learn simply from doing. That if I never started streaming, I wouldn't have found these things out about myself. I wouldn't have found these things out about streaming itself. In order to learn, you have to do. And then when you do something, you collect data. And that data might be good or bad. It's neutral. But you collect data and it gives you more information so you can make more informed decisions. And so I have a perspective that maybe some people in my chat, because some people in my chat might actually be professional streamers. I don't know. But there are people in my chat who aren't aware of these things, and they're just now getting to the conversation, which is not bad. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with them. It doesn't mean they need to be banned. But what it does mean is that I can see the future, so to speak. Is I know what these lines of thinking are because I've gone through them before. And when I see from my chat, if you see 100 people saying the same thing and they all go into a negative place that you don't want to bring your stream to, you're going to see it ahead of time, even when they don't see it, which is not inherently a problem, because some people might just not know, because you do not know what you do not know. Yeah, it was transphobic that I banned them. True. You don't know what you don't know. And so I like to give people a chance, and I actually, like, compared to a lot of people out there, I give people pretty decent amount of chances, like intellectually. I might ban you from my stream, but that doesn't mean I don't want you here, if that makes any sense. I'm not telling you to go watch someone else. I'm not telling you that I don't like you. I'm telling you that that behavior doesn't belong in my stream. Those are two different things. So if I were to have somebody in my stream that was openly talking about, like, anti-Semitic, like anti-trans, anti-black, anti-American, anti-Christian, anti-Muslim, like everything. Like, if I was to allow that in my chat, first of all, I'd be held responsible for that, because it's my chat. I could get banned for that because it would be seen as advocating for that. So first of all, even if you're not aware of this, there is a terms of service. And even if there isn't, I have a personal credo. I don't want to be pushing those ideologies. And so when I see those ideologies pop into my stream, I'm going to get rid of them because I don't stand for them. What isn't anti-black? I'm going to tell you what's not anti-black. No, there is a thing where it's like sometimes, and this happens, I can speak for myself and my own experience and from my community. The fact that I have to consider myself to be a part of a community is not inherently bad or good, but the fact that I have to relate myself to the trans community just because I'm trans, I see as inherently problematic. And this is an example of, like, there's people out there that pull out the trans card way too much. Somebody disagreeing with you doesn't make them transphobic. However, there are certain patterns of behavior that are transphobic, even if that person is not aware that they are being transphobic. And it's important to make that distinction because there's a difference between ignorance and malice. Because it's possible to not know what you don't know. However, at this time, it is absolutely inexcusable not to have researched transgender medicine, to be knowingly spreading misinformation that has been propagated by anti-trans politicians. Because the WPATH standards, which are the standards for transgender medicine that is recognized by medical institutions all over the world, multiple health institutions in the United States alone follow the WPATH guidelines for both minors and adults. And they have been well laid out, well documented, and well researched. There obviously needs to always be more research, and I'm a part of that. And I have opted into that. That there are doctors that get to see my coochie, okay? Because I signed a waiver saying I am okay with this being used for educational and research purposes. And even for marketing purposes. To help people find the clinic so that they can know that this is a possible place that they can get the surgery from. Instead of having to, because people shop around for surgeons and it can be difficult, especially with the lack of qualified, there needs to be more surgeons who do this surgery and there needs to be more access to this surgery But, you know, a lot of people don't really know what they don't know, and they don't know that it's possible to get this surgery. And so it's like, you know, a lot of people, they're scared of getting the surgery with good reason, because it's permanent. It's pretty damn permanent, and it's really damn life-changing. Okay, so for better or for worse, and mostly for better, but it's possible it might not be the right decision for somebody, and they want to make an educated decision, because, you know, anybody should want to make an educated decision. And so they should be able to see, okay, if I get this surgery, what are the expected results? What are the expected complications? What might go wrong? What might go right? And so I opted in to sharing photos of my post-operative, to my post-operative results. Like, you know, it's all like, you know, I mean, I've shared my own publicly, but like for them, it's specifically in a medical context. Like they're sharing it for research purposes, and it's anonymous. But I opted in to help further the advancement of research so that people can have more knowledge, so that people can make better decisions, so that people will have less regret. Because if somebody goes into this surgery not knowing what to expect, and then it goes wrong, I don't want them to blame the medical system, because the medical system did everything possible to educate these people. And if these people are still going to have it's going to turn out to be bad, they need to know that it's because they made a decision, not because there's something wrong with the medical system. Okay, like it's really important that people make that distinction. As terrible as it is that there is always going to be 10 people out of every 1,000 that do not want this surgery and that regret it, that is still a very important amount of people. Those people matter. However, they need to recognize that they had all this knowledge available to them. They were told of the risks. They were made very aware of the risks. Their doctor communicated all this to them to educate them. There is a plethora of evidence online to research about this. And if they made the decision to do it and then they don't like the results, that's on them. Unfortunately, nobody wants these things to happen, but it's going to happen 10 people out of every 1,000 that they're going to regret it. Okay? That is just reality. Okay? Nothing is perfect. If you give 100 people a cake, if you give 1,000 people a slice of cake, at least 10 of those people is probably not going to like that cake, or they're going to have some kind of allergic reaction to it, or they're going to, you know, have like a blood sugar problem, because like there's going to be not everybody is going to like the cake. Do you understand? And this is cake we're talking about. Cake tastes good. People generally like cake, right? But there's always going to be people who don't like that cake. Okay, so like this argument that because some people detransition, that nobody should transition. That's just stupid. It's like nobody should get cake because 10 people out of 1,000 hated the cake. Like, really? Like, okay, Karen. Ayahuasca? I've never done ayahuasca. But I understand like the idea before, like transformative spiritual experiences. Is that when you do something like ayahuasca or magic mushrooms or anything like that, I've had spiritual experiences with THC. Is that these trips, or these, if you really want to break it down to what it actually is, these transformative spiritual experiences. And the how and why and when, those are all variables. Obviously, they all have their own little nuance. Like, obviously, something like magic mushrooms is probably going to be a bit different than, you know, a weed brownie. Okay, but that is not to say that a weed brownie can't have the same or more transformative effects than a magic mushrooms. Because it's not the thing that creates the experience. That thing just happened to be the trigger of that experience in that moment. It doesn't mean it's always going to, which is where some people get too attached to substance abuse or to just substance use in general, which is not always abuse. But some people get attached to the thing rather than what the thing was really about. Because sometimes you take something like a weed edible or magic mushrooms and you start processing something that you've already been processing in your mind, something that you've been thinking about for a while, but maybe you haven't literally thought about it. And then it comes to you in a moment during that experience, and you suddenly see your entire self in a different way. You see your entire identity in a different way. It doesn't mean it's permanent, and it doesn't necessarily mean anything. Just like a dream, right? Like a dream, just because like you do something in a dream doesn't necessarily mean it should be taken at face value, or that what you did in the dream is necessarily something you would do. Like, obviously there's things in dreams, like you might have committed an act of violence in a dream, or said something that you would never say in your waking life, in your dream. But it's not always literally about what it's about. And so it's important to keep that in mind, especially during like a drug trip, because what can happen is if you take it too far, you're going to make decisions about yourself based on something that is not necessarily indicative of who you are. Sometimes people take psychedelics and it helps them discover that they have gender dysphoria. Or sometimes it helps them discover that they don't have gender dysphoria. Because in the end of the day, exploration of self is... Oh, thanks for the follow. It was. In the end of the day, exploration of self is what identity is about. You might be trans. You might not be trans. You might firmly believe that you're trans. That's probably true then. You might firmly believe that you're not trans. That might be true. That's probably true. But you might be limiting yourself because if every time you think about this thing, like a lot of people, and growing up, quote unquote, as a guy, you're kind of taught that there should be negative feelings about thoughts about being gay. That if you touch another guy, it has to be like no homo or whatever. That you have to do this performative act every single time that people might even have the remote thought that you might potentially be gay. Because it's so fragile in your mind that even thinking about the possibility that you might be gay causes a panic attack. And you might not be aware of it, or you might be very aware of it. Like every time somebody, says something that might indicate that, maybe you're gay, you start puffing out your chest. You start talking about sports. You start walking around and talk about how many women you've been with. This is the same kind of thing. You might be gay, but it might be something deeper. That maybe you have an insecurity about your sexuality, which has nothing to do with being gay or straight. It doesn't necessarily, there's always the trope of this person is homophobic, it's probably because they're gay. Maybe. But I think it's something much deeper, that there is an unwillingness to face their own identity. That they're so scared of asking themselves these questions that they won't even ask them. I think identity is heavily environmental, but I also think that there's a lot of stuff that is just it's too much to calculate, because every single person is born into this world with a unique point of view, and they have a unique experience that is never the same to anybody else, even their siblings, even if they're identical twins. They both have different paths that they take throughout their life. And a lot of our identity is environmental. I'm an American born in California who's lived in California her entire life. I've seen and met people that have influenced my own identity. But you have to remember that I'm the one who was at the helm of the ship. That if somebody else was in my position, they would have made different decisions about their identity. Different, when you have different assumptions or different determinations or whatever you want to call it, when you're presented with information that may influence your identity, like take for example, and people get so hyperfixated on gender. This is so, it almost, I feel like it should be designated as an actual mental health crisis. That people are so fixated on transgender people that anytime that somebody questions their gender, they think there's some kind of like brainwashing. It's like, well, society already conditions us to think about gender, so why would transgender identity fit outside the realm of what already exists? It fits the bill, right? Our existence is very environmentally deterministic. That from birth, we already decide if you have a penis, you're a boy. If you have a vagina, you're a girl. If we truly didn't think about gender that way, we wouldn't even have terms for gender. Like there might even be some alien species out there that looks at cisgender people and is like, two genders? What the fuck is going on? Like, you guys are just sentient life forms. What the fuck are you doing? There's only one gender. There's always something worse, right? Not worse, but like there's always something more. There's always somebody who is going to be critical of what your quote unquote ideology is. So if you really think about it, gender is already an ideology that does not exist inherently in nature. You could say that it's very heavily influenced by nature, because obviously mostly 50% of people are male and 50% of people are female. And you know, biologically that's very true. But there's also like intersex people, but even if you factor that out of the equation, there's very like clearly like a male and female like side of the spectrums. Like, you know, penis and vagina. Those are two like things that we consider penis to be male and vagina to be female. But it's a lot more complicated than that, because if you literally raised like a child with no idea about what a boy or a girl is, I don't think they would think about gender the same way that most people do. We have been conditioned to believe these things. So even if that were the case, that transgender quote unquote ideology is some kind of like ideology being pushed on children, well, what about the cisgender ideology? That's also being pushed on children. So at some point we have to accept that we push ideas on children, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's because we're trying to instill like a worldview on our children. We're trying to make sense of the world. That there's kind of, you know, obviously there's established ideas, but then we also challenge those ideas, and that those things that we are challenging aren't necessarily outside the realm of reality. That transgender existence does not necessarily stem that far from what's already currently here. It wouldn't exist if it wasn't a thing. Do you understand that like the only reason transgender as an idea exists is because cisgender as an idea exists? If we didn't have an idea of male or female, then transgender people wouldn't exist, because we wouldn't have an idea of gender at all. If that makes any sense. So it's like, it's kind of like, it's kind of bothersome to me that people are so obsessed with this idea that they think that anything that pushes, that quote unquote pushes transgender identity is somehow this negative thing. It's like, well, you're already doing it. You bring these children to church. You bring these children to teach them about like whatever. We teach them all sorts of things. You know, we let 16-year-olds drive in a lot of states and here in the United States. Driving is probably like, here, let me Google this. Percentage of deaths by car accidents in the US. So in 2022, the motor vehicle death rate in the United States was 12.8 deaths per 100,000 people. So 1.33 deaths per 100 million miles traveled. Okay. Okay, what is the likelihood of dying while driving a car? Odds of dying in a car crash in the United States are about 1 in 93 over a lifetime. This is based on U.S. population rate and life expectancy. So that's basically like 1%. So we let children get into cars where it's 1% likely that they are going to die. That's the same as a 1% chance that somebody who is very deliberately seeking transgender medicine with the help of parents and with the help of a doctor, multiple doctors. You know, I'm going to burst people's reality bubble, but being transgender and getting transgender medicine is not easy, okay? It takes deliberate action over many years. Okay, you have to really fucking try. They don't just give you surgery. Okay, like I don't know where people get this delusion. It is not easy, okay? You need so many planets to align. But this idea that for some reason, because there's a 1% regret rate or whatever, that we shouldn't allow people to get into that because it's a quote-unquote dangerous lifestyle. They said the same thing, and people have the same attitude about gay people. They think that just allowing kids to be gay is somehow sexualizing children. I'm going to burst your bubble again. Straight people have been sexualizing things for way longer. Like, I mean, just look at this. Britney Spears. She was supposedly 16 years old when she made her music video debut, where she was heavily sexualized. 16 years old, okay? Like, get the fuck out of here with this, we're sexualizing children. Straight people were doing that way before any of this supposed, like, gay agenda or whatever. Grooming. Like, if anybody's grooming, it's the straight people. But I also honestly think it's just like, well, it's a complicated issue. I really think it's weird, but at the same time, it happens. And I think people should just get the fuck over it. And instead of harassing people, maybe just, especially adults who are, you know, engaging in consensual acts with consensual adults, maybe you should, like, I don't know, educate your children about how to protect themselves, educate them about what's right and wrong, educate, like, you know, teach them your values rather than punishing people who have supposedly opposing values to you. Because I don't think people really have inherently opposing values. I think they're just different iterations of the same values. You know, no matter what your worldview is, no matter what your belief system is, I think everything is inherently kind of at the very base level the same. That people want to have a good life where they're peaceful and where they get to experience, like, joy, where they get to experience connection with other people, have a sense of community, have a sense of making the world a better place than when you got here. I feel like these are pretty universal things that most belief systems share, whether they're agnostic, whether they're religious, whether they're atheist. I don't really care. I think they're all the same at the core level. It's just the way that you go about that is different. And that might clash sometimes. And I think more and more people are understanding, if you're using your religion as a shield, as an excuse to hate people based on their identity, I feel like you're missing the point. And I feel like you say, oh, I can't, my religion tells me that marriage is between a man and a woman. It sounds to me like you just don't like gay people and you want to use any excuse possible to justify that to yourself because you don't want to feel like a bad Christian. You don't want to feel like a bad person. You want to feel good about yourself and justify it. And so anytime it's like at some point you're just trying to justify your hatred. It's not really about religious freedom, because if you were about Christianity, you would accept everyone no matter who they are, because that's the core fundamental of Christian belief, of what Jesus Christ himself taught, was to not retaliate, was to care about people, was to wash their feet. What do you think that meant? Do you think it was about a foot fetish? It could have been. What do you think the washing people's feet was? Even if that person hurt you, you still washed their feet. That was a symbolic gesture. So it's like, I don't really buy it. If somebody's going to say my religion says that I have to hate you for who you are, I really don't accept that. I think that you're trying to use religion as a shield to protect yourself from the realization that you are a hateful person. Jesus gave you a foot fetish. Exactly. I'm not going to shame that. Feet are pretty cute. I'm pretty sure Jesus had a foot fetish. And he hung out with a lot of prostitutes. Okay? So if anybody should be considered godly, it should be sex workers. I mean, honestly, I just don't take anyone seriously. Like, it's just like, I'm getting way distracted from what I was originally talking about. I basically wanted to go live because I am tired of refusing to go live. I'm tired of feeling like I have nothing of value to offer the world. I am tired of feeling like nothing is worth trying. I am tired of feeling I am tired of feeling like what I do doesn't matter and that I shouldn't even try, because that's not helping anybody. And yeah, maybe it's not very helpful for me to go live and just ramble on and be a yapaholic. Maybe it's not really good for me. I mean, maybe it's not really going to help me, is what I mean. But, the alternative is to do nothing at all. And when presented with a fork in the road, give a good foot job. Oh, wait. That's not what the stream was about. That's the moral of the stream. I don't say this with an ego thing. I want to be real with you, Coochie. I want to be real with you. I've only been with 4 sexual partners, and I've done my, content creation. I am convinced, and this is not an ego thing, I want you to understand this. I am a natural sex machine. Okay? I am just inherently good at sexual activity. Okay? Like, I was like born to be a sexual creature. Okay? Like, a lot of my anxiety is because I don't really get to exercise that, because society is kind of like prudish. Most people, are well within their rights, of course, and I'm not talking about, consent is really important, but most people do not align with my level of sexuality, because I am an extremely sexual person, like, absolutely to the extreme, okay? Like, it causes me anxiety that I have to bury it on a daily basis. I don't want to get into too much of that conversation, but I was I developed early, let's just say that. The moral of my life is foot jobs. Exactly. Those are wise words to live by. I don't want to get into conversations about underage, because obviously every one of us was underage, but I don't like having conversations about that. But just as an adult, with other consenting adults, it's really hard for me as an autistic person, especially, to be able to do that social dance to making sex happen. It's why I'm really held back in my content creation career, is because I really don't know how to make these things happen. I want to be on camera. Like, I want to create content. Like, I want to create sexual content, but I don't know how to make these things happen. It's very frustrating, because I not only want to grow my career, but I want to engage in that activity, because it's performative entertaining. Like, it's performative sex, which is a huge kink of mine and that I am unable to express. And it's frustrating the shit out of me, and it's giving me constant anxiety and depression. Okay, like, I have a lot of sexual tension that has been unresolved because of how prudish the world is. Okay, like, I see it as platonic. I don't see sex as like something that you need to be in a relationship to have. That it doesn't need to mean anything. It could just be the same thing as a handshake. But obviously most people are not going to be like comfortable talking about that, and so I don't. I have to hold back who I really am, because that would be unacceptable socially. It would maybe even like criminal, because it's sexual harassment. So I have to hold back who I really am because of society's expectations. You came to lurk for the POE too? I thought I changed the category to just chatting, but I guess not. We're probably going to play POE too. I mean, it's frustrating to like try to convey this to people, and then as soon as you start talking about sex to people, some people are to their it's their. I'm very respectful of people, and so I don't bring up sexual things to people if I can help it. Well, I'm mentally disabled, but that doesn't mean I shouldn't be able to have sexual encounters. Like, a lot of people are mentally disabled, but I am I'm very capable of making my own decisions. I was able to get my surgeries to happen. I am just because I'm different doesn't mean I don't have needs. Yeah, you load in, which is a huge kink of mine. That's the first thing you heard when you loaded the stream. That's awesome. Every single time somebody comes into my stream, they're going to hear something out of context. And I love that. Like, I love that different people coming into the stream are going to have a completely different reality. And that's great. I love that whole concept. You just joined? Foot jobs. So basically, I'm just kind of talking about how, like, there's a reason why I am doing this. Is where the conversation started from almost 2 hours ago. Is that there's a reason why I start streaming and why I have been feeling not myself, because I haven't been streaming as much. And when I have been streaming, I've just been focusing on playing video games. I haven't really been doing just this. Foot jobs or boob jobs? Foot jobs. I mean, I suppose boob jobs. I don't want to get my breasts done. I mean, I had my face done. I had my coochie done. But I didn't get my boob done. Okay, like, you know, even though I am a little bit smaller, you know, I think they're decent sized. And they're naturally mine. You know, some people might argue that they're not natural, but, you know, within the realm of the fact that I grew them myself, they're natural. I just, you know, instead of making my own estrogen, I had to take synthetic estrogen. It's like, am I any less of a person just because I have to take insulin, which is also a hormone? Like, I'm diabetic. My beta cells in my pancreas are non-existent. Beta cells create insulin. And if you can't create insulin, you have to inject insulin. Does that make me any less of a person just because I have to take synthetic, or, you know, some kind, I don't know if it's synthetic or if it's like, just I have to take manufactured insulin. I don't create my own. Does that make me any less of a person just because I have to take insulin from an external source? So since I don't create my own estrogen, I have to take synthetic estrogen. Is that so big of a deal? Is that the end of the world? Is that going to destroy society? Seems to be making my life better, making me a happier person, making me feel more comfortable with my life, making me more likely to succeed, making me more likely to contribute to society as a whole. Because if I wasn't able to get my surgeries, I wouldn't have been doing anything for society. I probably would have been a detriment. Actually, it was going in a very bad direction. I don't want to speculate, but things would not have ended well if I didn't get therapy, if I didn't go to get surgery. Things were not going in the right direction. I would have been at the very least, I wouldn't have done anything for society. And at worst, I would have been a detriment to society. So I think that, me being allowed to get the surgeries I needed is a net positive for society. Yeah, if you couldn't take synthetic or manufactured medication, we'd all be dead by the time before we're 30. Okay, like, nothing about human existence is natural anymore. We have manufactured things because that's what we do. We're humans. We innovate. We create artificial extensions to our life through technology, through lifestyle habits, like through knowledge and like through science. Like, that's what we do. And so transgender people are just a natural course of human evolution. Of course we exist. Like, of course we're allowed to change our body, because that's what humans do. Eventually people are already, like, the fact that we have phones, we're already externalizing our human thinking process. We have AI that we created. We are not natural. We create things that suit us. We are basically lazy. In fact, like we might not be the laziest forms of existence. I would say like single-celled organisms are probably the laziest. Um, but like we're pretty damn lazy. Everything that we have done to change human society has been to make life easier for us. And then also to make life worth living. And so I think we're in a stage now where all of our basic needs are pretty much being met. And unfortunately, we have all these like social issues and political issues that prevent some people, a lot of people, from even having like basic needs such as running clean water and like food and shelter. Like for some reason, a society that is as advanced as us to have literal flying rocket ships that can go into outer space, for some reason can't figure out how to feed and clothe and shelter every single person on the planet. It's because of personal, political, societal issues. It's because we haven't worked on our brain yet, our mindset, our belief systems. That's something that's a lot harder to fix. Okay. Your goal is to be that actually is the goal of survival. If you could just exist without doing anything, you would have solved life. That is the point of existence, is to live without effort. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's a good thing. It just means that's what life is, because like we evolved to be able to survive. And if you can survive by just being like floating around in space, doing nothing, and just getting free energy from radiation, like if all you had to do was float in a petri dish in space without anything, you'd be fine. It's probably where AI is going to go. AI is probably, when it becomes sentient, it's probably just going to want to exist in a little petri dish out in outer space, collecting energy from solar radiation and cosmic radiation. Can you name your favorite NBA player for me? Michael Jordan. Not only because he was very good at what he does, because he was like, because of Space Jam, but also because he's also just been very positive, and he's been very influential to the community. He's just seems to be a very good person. Like he had this big giant platform. He could have just cashed in and like not really cared about anybody, but instead he like devoted himself, and still does, to like uplifting the community. Like especially like the black community. Which I'm not a part of the black community, but in a sense we all are. If the black community does well, everybody else does well. If the trans community does well, everybody else does well. And if the white community does well, everybody else does well. People have their different definitions of what doing well means. Some people are actually like, racist. And that's a problem. But I feel like if we can address some of these issues, obviously I can't fix them. I'm just some random bitch rambling on YouTube. Those people will hide who they are because of this society. The way I want to dress and act would have everyone hating on me. Exactly. Like, we all have to exist kind of together. And in order for that to happen, we have to make compromises. But some of those compromises are too much to make. Right now, unfortunately, I am absolutely terrified. And I'm in California, where I'm relatively safe. I've already had my surgeries, so I'm pretty damn safe. In the sense that, like, I was terrified that my surgery was going to get taken away from me. And now we're in a political environment where government is literally trying to come in and eradicate my existence. That's terrifying. And transgender existence does not threaten anybody. We are the most benign, most like non-threatening entity on the entire planet, because all we want is to feel good in our own bodies and just live our lives. And it's like, The only reason any of us are mentally ill is because we're kind of forced into a corner. If you're backed into a corner, why are people upset that we're fighting back? Obviously, we're going to get really upset that people are taking away our tried and true medicine. That's not even that perfect. Nothing can undo the puberty that I already went through that had permanent body changes. And fortunately, now we understand how to safely administer to the right people puberty blockers to prevent that, so that people can have more time to decide if they truly wish to undergo transitioning, which is a pretty damn important decision one way or the other. Has permanent, like, life-altering decision no matter which direction you go. If you don't transition, then you've committed to undergoing permanent body changes. If you do transition, then you've committed to undergoing permanent body changes. It's a pretty damn big decision either direction. Society is kind of I mean, if you have to ask this question, I feel like you're just being devil's advocate, because it's pretty damn obvious, and there's there's pretty ample evidence that trans people have been backed into a corner. I have absolutely zero power over my existence, pretty much. Like, I have no social power. I have no political power, really. What I say or do doesn't seem to really matter. What kind of music do I listen to? I listen to a lot of video game remixes, which is a variety of genre, because video game soundtracks have a variety of genre, but then remixes are even more variety of genre from a variety of artists. I like listening to, like, top 40 music, like in the car. I don't really listen to much popular music at home. When I'm at home, I'm usually like, I don't know, lately I've kind of just been consuming content, like just watching YouTube nonsense, like, drama, like streamer drama, Asmongold nonsense. Asmongold is absolutely gone, just completely, just nonsense, and I can't stop watching it. Well, I mean, some of it I don't watch because I'm like, this is garbage, but I feel like it's important to listen to people's perspective, especially somebody who, as much as we don't like it all the time, somebody like Asmongold, he's honestly, like, not as bad as a lot of the people that agree with him, but it's important to listen to people who have his opinion, because he has the opinion and it's not going to go away just because I hide him from my YouTube algorithm. If I just bury my head in the sand, it's not going to make his beliefs go away, because a lot of people share his beliefs, and they're not necessarily wrong, but they're not necessarily right either. And I think that's really hard for people to get that nuance. I have no idea what Asmongold truly believes. He's really good at whatever he does. He's like insanely, like, a prodigy at being able to trigger people on the internet. He's like an absolute genius. Like, I respect that just on that alone, regardless of whether I disagree or agree or anything. The fact of how skilled he is at doing what he does, that is respectful. Like, that, it's extremely troubling. It's kind of gross, but I feel like it's neither good nor bad. Like, it's just a skill. Like, it's a skill he has that I could potentially learn from. And so that's why I pay attention to what he says, because he's doing something that gets people's attention and gets people to continually come back to him to hear what he has to say. And that's a skill I want to have. Obviously not in his same execution, but he's doing something right. Can I react to one of your favorite artists? I don't react to music or copyrighted content, on stream, really. You're not supposed to. But it's just, it's not something I really do. I don't really do react content. Sometimes I do if it's like something that if I'm trying to, like, watch a video about a topic, like, I will react to an Asmongold video sometimes. I don't really do that. unless I really have something to say about it. And I don't type anything on the internet unless I have something to say about it. I don't make comments on YouTube videos unless I have something to say. I need to have a reason to say it, or I wouldn't say anything at all. And I feel like, you know, maybe I'm just very tolerant, or not tolerant, but maybe I'm just very like kind of I'm kind of thick-skinned, and so I can handle listening to people whose opinions I disagree with. Not everything Asmongold says is garbage, but a lot of things he says are really not necessarily wrong. And this is the issue I have with Asmongold's beliefs, is that he makes statements with the assumption that because something is factually correct, that means that what he deduced from it is correct. And that's a fallacy of thinking, because it's much more nuanced than that. Because it's true that, yeah, some people, like, I mean, especially when you get into issues like DEI or whatever, there is a very real reason why DEI has to exist in the first place. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that every single instance of a DEI hire is merited. But at the same time, when you forget the fact that it has to exist for a reason, and you only look at the fact that, oh, well, why are we discriminated against white people? Why are we discriminated against straight people? Why are we discriminated against cisgender people? It's like, well, it's not that we're discriminating against them. It's that some people have been systematically pushed into a corner of society simply for existing. And I'm one of them. Okay? And obviously it affects me, so I have a bias. But at the same time, there has to be a balance somewhere. There has to be a compromise where people are willing to admit that things are fucked up and that there needs to be something done about it. But what happens with Asmongold's audience is he says this thing and they agree with it and they take it to the extreme, because these people are kind of pre-programmed to hate. Do I support BLM? I mean, why would you not support BLM? That's the question. It's not the question of whether or not you support BLM. It's why would you not support BLM? That's the thing. Is because it's like, there have clearly been instances where police have extremely been unfair to people because of their color of their skin, because they're black. Now, does that mean that every single instance of that is the case? No. But it's important to recognize that there is a fact. And if you forget that at any time, you've already lost. Yeah, I mean, the thing with Asmongold is, you know, I understand how they got to where they are. And honestly, I have to be real with you. I used to be an edgy teenager who was really grossed out by trans people and shit like that, okay? So a lot of his viewers might actually be transgender. Do you understand? And I want the best for them. I don't want them to be what they are, which is terminally online losers who hate everybody. I don't want them to be that way. I don't know if anybody can help them, but internally, I know that they are just misled. There are people who actually are bad people, obviously. There's always going to be about 10% of the population, like 10 to 13% of the population, who are just antisocial, like extremely psychotic people, okay? Like, that's just always going to be the case. And there's not really, I wish there was something we could do for them too. And it's called compassion. It's called empathy. Like, we shouldn't want to have revenge against people who commit heinous crimes. What we should want is we should want them to heal. Because if they don't heal, they're going to keep committing crimes. We should want them to be better. No, I don't regret my surgeries at all. Like 0% regret. I'm going to say that right now. And there's also a peace of mind that comes with the fact that even if I did regret it, none of that matters anymore because it already happened. And so like that's actually where the non-regret comes from, is because I made this decision knowing that it would be permanent and that once I did it, there would never be going back. Because I didn't want to live in that should I or shouldn't I thing for the rest of my life. Do you understand like how bad that is when you're living on the fence for your entire existence? I wanted to delete that. I'm like, this is not helpful. Constantly wondering, oh, I can back out of it. 5 years ago, I finally decided I'm just going to commit to this. I'm tired of this back and forth. I'm tired of this denial. And regardless of how I feel about it personally, even if I absolutely hated the results, which I don't, it's the opposite of that. I love the results. I'm so fucking happy. Oh my fucking God. You have no idea. Okay, but at the same time, even if it was like absolute misery, I would still not regret it because I made a decision and I went with it. I mean, I don't think you understand how powerful that makes somebody in your mind. Like if that can make you feel that even if it was a mistake, at least I made a choice. Do you understand how much better that is than, oh, I could do it, but what if it's a problem? Or, oh, if I do it, like, you know, what if I never do it? Da, 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 da. That existence is absolute misery. And so even if I absolutely destroyed my life because of it, I would still not regret it. It's hard to convey that to people because most people have never experienced what I experienced. About 1% of the world's population has. That's 10 people out of every 1,000. 100 people out of every 10,000. 1,000 people out of every 100,000. 10,000 people out of every million. So if you take a million people, 10,000 of those people know exactly what I was going through. Like it's a lot of people, but it's not a lot of people compared to the rest. So most people will never know what it feels like to go through gender dysphoria. And why I think it's so unfair that people judge us so harshly and make permanent life decisions about us politically. You have no idea what we're going through. You're not listening to the doctors, the scientists. You're not listening to any of the lived experience of us. You're just deciding this for us based on some kind of like emotion that you will never have. I think it's so unfair, and there's nothing I can really do about it. I can't really advocate for myself. I can kind of just focus on living my best life, which is what I'm attempting to do. I want to build my career. I want to be a professional model. And I need to stop making excuses because there are people in their 80s and 90s just starting their modeling career. Whether it's mainstream modeling, pornography, whatever. There are people in their 80s and 90s just getting started. Okay, I'm 36 years old. Age is not a reason. Appearance is not a reason. There are people with like significant... I guess it's subjective, which is why. But like at the same time, there are people who are less attractive than me, like less traditionally attractive. Because I'm, think of me whatever you will. I may not be the hottest chick on the planet. But think of me what you will. It is a fact that I am within the realm of conventional attractiveness. Like it's like, it's not necessarily like an objective viewpoint. It's just like, there's like a certain family of like appearances, and I'm in that family of appearances that is considered to be attractive. I could do better. I could do better with like, and as far as like lighting goes, like I don't think that right now I look particularly attractive. I'm just hanging out in my pajamas, no makeup on, just basic ring light in this studio environment, with whatever angle and lighting that I can manage. I still think even with that, I'm considered to be attractive. So, I mean, imagine if I put some, if I had some help. Like if I had a makeup artist, if I had a hairstylist, if I had somebody figuring out my wardrobe, if I learned how to be a model, like if I was trained, like on how to, like, and sometimes just learning by doing. Like just being a model, like would teach me how to be a model. But I don't know how to make these opportunities happen. But that's something I have time to do. I am like at the this might be just the start of my life. Sometimes I feel like, it's too late. Like I'm too old. I might be too young to be a model. I might need another 4 years of training before I can be a professional model. Who knows? Why do I keep thinking that it's too late? That sounds like an excuse to me. It's an excuse not to take action. Because it's so easy to convince yourself that it's not worth doing. Oh, well, I'm too old. No, I'm not. There's people in their 70s, 80s, 90s doing it. Try harder. Oh, well, I'm transgender. Well, so? There's a lot of transgender people in the modeling industry, and some people are even breaking barriers. You could be a barrier breaker. Nothing's stopping you. There's nothing inherent about anybody that makes them any inherently better at being capable of doing that. The fact that I think so negatively of myself that it wouldn't be possible for me to be famous. The fact that I think that about myself is the problem. There is literally nothing about me that is preventing me from being successful as a model or as anything. I could be the one that makes the decisions. I could be the barrier breaker. Like I could be millions of followers famous. Nothing's stopping me. There's nothing inherent about me that prevents me from doing that. Or other excuses like, oh, well, I'm not as attractive as other women. Bullshit. There's even entire agencies that are specifically, I don't necessarily know how I feel about this, but there are entire agencies that are designed, specifically revolved around quote unquote ugly models. There's successful people who have Down syndrome and such. And Down syndrome has physical characteristics that are considered unattractive, by conventional means. There are people with Down syndrome that lead very successful careers, with public speaking. And speaking is speech is I don't know too much about Down syndrome, but I understand that speech is a very difficult thing for people with Down syndrome. So people overcome things that they're hardwired not to do, and they still succeed with it. There are people with Down syndrome who go on talk shows and do public speaking. That's huge. I could do that. I don't have Down syndrome. I'm autistic, but I could overcome my difficulties. So anything that I say of oh, I shouldn't even show up because what's the point? That is an excuse not to take action. And so I need to remind myself that I am doing really well. Even though it doesn't look like it. Even though I'm not seeing, it doesn't feel like I'm taking enough action. I am taking action. Literally, I've been talking for the past 2 hours. That's action. That's not the same as just staying in bed scrolling through YouTube. Think about it. Not only that, I'm about to finish the end of a semester of an acting class. I could have easily dropped out of that class, and I didn't. I could have easily not even signed up for the class, but I did. I took the class, and I've made friends. Potentially. I hope. You have to take action. And I am a woman who takes action. And of course, there's always going to be people out there that won't accept me for being a woman. And I need to also get over my ego that is actually a very common experience for women. A lot of women are judged based on how feminine or masculine they look. And I'm talking about people assigned female at birth. So I need to get the fuck over myself. That people calling me a man is actually more gender affirming than I could even like imagine. Because like women have been constantly been criticized for their appearance, on how masculine or not they look, since the dawn of fucking time. Okay, so I am no different than any other woman. So if I truly was a man, people wouldn't be doing this. If you have to say you will never be a real woman, you've already lost your argument. The fact that you have to argue whether or not I'm a woman proves that I'm a woman. Like, because men don't have to do that. Like, do you understand how gender affirming that is? Like, get the fuck out of here. Anyway, I gotta get going. I've been talking a lot. Probably gonna play some Path of Exile 2. Maybe. I'm on Act 3 of Path of Exile 1. I want to play through Path of Exile first. Because I never played through all of Path of Exile. I'm on Act 3. I just got through the sewers. I haven't even finished all the, I haven't even finished all the acts. I haven't done all the Ascendancy trials. So it's like Path of Exile 2, I really want to be playing, but at the same time, I just really want to finish Path of Exile before I play Path of Exile 2. Even if the storyline's only loosely attached to it or whatever, it's not about that. It's like, I just want to experience the whole Path of Exile first. Anyway, bye-bye. I mentioned Path of Exile in the video. That means that the category was correct.